Why isn't that working? Hold on. Oh, we're live. We're actually live. Oh my God. Hey, welcome in everyone to the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, guys, Coach Steve. I was having issues getting it to link to X for some reason. Premium account is required to stream on that platform now. That's not great. So we will not have any people tuning in on X tonight. It'll probably be just our Facebook and our YouTube channel, but that's okay. It's even better. So welcome in, everyone, guys. Glad to be back here, guys. We have another fantastic episode for you tonight. We are talking running backs tonight. We are continuing our positional previews. Last week we did quarterbacks. Tonight we are doing running backs, basically kind of somewhat tearing them off in our own way here, looking at different tiers at the running back position here. And, of course, we have the whole crew back together once again. Coach Tyler, man, what's going on?
What's up, guys? Glad to be back. Glad to start talking running backs. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. And, of course, we have Coach Steve, and I don't know, I can't remember the nickname we came up with, but Coach Steve is back as well, guys.
I think it was Steve too. That's fine. Coach Steve too. Let's get into the running backs. For anybody that was watching us live for those first couple minutes, you guys are creepy. Why are you guys watching people while they're just chilling? That's weird.
It's all good. It's all good. But like I said, guys, we are having a great show for you guys tonight here. So we're going to start here at the top here. Things are a little messy today. I don't know what's going on, whether it's Yardstream or X. I don't know what's going on, but we're going to just continue into this mayhem today for you guys. So we're starting here, running backs, early round running backs here. We're talking round 1, round 2, round 1. And this is basically off kind of ADP right now. We're not talking ADP per se, but this is basically based off ADP currently right now. Round 1, you have the CMC, the Bijan Robinson, the Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor. And then you have round 2, you have Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Karan Williams, and Devon Achane. So, guys, Coach, whoever wants to go first here, tell me about a player that you really like in this range here who has, good value, or just in general, anything positive about a player.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go JT. That's my guy this year. I have him pretty heavily ranked. I mean, I think that, relatively speaking, he is usually the 4th off the board, but a lot of times Gibbs probably goes ahead of him. So really he's the RB5. I have him more on that 3-4, depending on the format. But I'm going to go Bijan. I think it's Bijan's year. I really like getting him at the back of the first round after all of those receivers go. You usually see the big 4 receivers go and then Bijan. Sometimes Bijan will go ahead. And I think, I'm more in the boat of I think it should be more the norm where Bijan goes at the 3 overall pick or the 4, but usually you get him at the back half. Love that value. Kirk Cousins coming in, just the dump offs, man. Just give us that check down. I mean, the receiving work he did last year was fine for his rookie season. He should smoke that with Kirk Cousins dumping it off. And just with that alone, I feel very comfortable with him as my RB1. That a Kirk Cousins-led offense can be in the red zone quite a bit. And I think that you're going to see more work in the goal line for Bijan this year. So I think overall you're just getting a workhorse, and it's going to be a great year for Bijan.
Yeah, Coach Tyler, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the layup here. Christian McCaffrey, hard not to love him. Him being the RB1 in terms of drafts and where he's going in terms of ADP, you're kind of really betting on a sure thing. And when I look at, the round 1 running backs, I don't see a lot of sure things there outside of Christian McCaffrey, right? The 49ers didn't bring in anyone outstanding to challenge CMC in the backfield. He's not coming off of some major injury. They didn't bring in a new OC that's, going to go full air raid and not run the ball ever again. If he can stay healthy, which he's done since he has been in San Francisco, then there's no reason not to have CMC as the RB1 and to smash draft on that. We see his first full season in San Francisco, see an RB2 finish both in PPR and half PPR. 1,139 yards, 8 touchdowns, and then 85 receptions for 741 and 5 touchdowns. This past year, he goes and shows that up with 1,459 yards, 14 rushing touchdowns, and then only 67 receptions for 564 and 7 touchdowns. I look at when you're looking at a tier 1 running back, especially if you're looking in the first round, you're looking for the least amount of variables to make them an RB1, right? You want the least amount of things possible that could go wrong for them to be the RB1. So Bijan Robinson, you look at him, they might go pass happy like Kirk had to do with the Vikings, and they might not run the ball enough for Bijan to be, RB2, RB3, where we're wanting him to fall. Breece Hall, a ton of his production in his outstanding season last year came on those dump offs. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is ready to let it fly, right? And maybe the Jets O-line, even though they've added a couple guys to it, isn't perfect. And then Jonathan Taylor, obviously, if Anthony Richardson stays healthy, the rushing quarterback argument is going to be against him. And then, there's arguments for guys in round 2, shared backfield with Gibbs, Barkley. Is he going to be like DeAndre Swift and just fall down at the 1 every time and let Jalen Hurts score 35 tush-push touchdowns? Kyren Williams, y'all know how I feel about Kyren Williams. And then Achane, not the workhorse in the backfield. So, if I'm looking at tier 1, there's one guy that I'm walking out with 100% assurance of, hey, if all 8 of these guys stay healthy, this is the guy that I would put all my money on, put all my bets on to be the RB1 or to meet his ADP, which being picked, 3rd, 4th overall in your drafts, he has to surpass everything to meet that. But CMC is the only one that I see without a variable outside of health to affect him going forward.
Oh, the Madden curse, the fact that he was an RB1 last year. Come on. These things are real, guys. These things are absolutely real.
No one's worried about Madden. NCAA came out today. Already been playing it.
I hate it.
It's fantastic. It's awesome.
I don't have the consoles to play that freaking game. I'm very upset about that. Stupid, EA. But you guys have great points. You guys have great points about some players that you obviously like this season here. Round 1, obviously, it's really hard to knock any of these round 1 RBs in a general sense. Like, all 4 of them have a workhorse level role that really doesn't require a backup. I really like the value you're getting with Breece Hall in the middle of the first round here, and the PPR value that he does offer, especially with Rodgers coming off that Achilles injury, and the fact that he's going to see a lot of work on the ground. The round 2 running backs, they all have a kind of like they all have a reason why you're like, you could say, I don't like them per se. But how do you guys feel about anyone that you're really concerned about? Coach Tyler, I already know that Williams is your biggest concern. Coach Steve, then 2. Is there anyone in your end that is more of a concern than Williams, or is Williams also your concern?
It's got to be Kyren. I think Achane would be the next one, of course. But I just love what you get from Achane. You know that you're getting those ceiling games. So the worry with him is, will he just have a low floor? But you're still getting those ceiling games as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, that's an issue for me too. Achane is also someone I actually really have issues drafting in the first 2 rounds. And to me, when I want to take a running back that early, I want the opportunities. And I just feel like Achane doesn't get the opportunity and won't get the opportunity enough in Miami unless like a Raheem Mostert goes down. There's writing on the wall. Raheem Mostert could go down this year. Age, injury history, things like that. But I feel like you're just drafting Achane at a ceiling play. Like, that's where you could end up as an RB on the season, absolutely, pretty easily. But
Achane is a fantastic underdog draft pick.
Yeah,
anything
absolutely. Outside
of underdog, unless he's really fallen in a draft, I don't want to touch him, because you do get those big booms. But then you also have games where he's scoring, sub 5 points. And so it's just, are you trying to hit those home runs, or do you want week-to-week production?
Yeah, and he's much better as an RB2 on your team, right? You draft him as that RB1. Sure, you can make up for that and get, one of these next guys we're going to talk about. But really, if you get if you start your draft with Bijan and you come back around with Achane, I think that's the way to play it. Getting him as your RB1 is a tough bet for me.
Yeah, I don't like him in the second round at all. If he falls to the third, I might have more willingness to take a shot on him at that point. But in the first 2 rounds, I want a sure thing. And Williams and Achane for me, I just feel like aren't sure things right now in fantasy football. So, all right, over to the next category here. We have the high mid-round RBs, because I couldn't think of a better name for any of these tiers. So the high mid-round RBs, you have the rounds 3 and 4 with the Travis Etienne's, Derrick Henry's, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, James Cook. And then you have the rounds 5-6 range. Well, you have the Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara, Ramondre Stevenson, Aaron Jones, and Najee Harris. Basically, this is the next tiers of starting running backs. All these running backs are, you could say, for the most part, are considered the RB1s on their team, who likely will have the RB1 role on their team for the entire season here. But in these tiers, guys, these 4-5 range tiers, because this is what a lot of people might end up just saying, I'm going to wait and take some of these guys here. Who is somebody in these tiers here that you guys are staying away from? Give me a player in this area that you're staying away from.
As far as staying away from, I think that there's really not that. It really just, for me, is I like a player better. So for any of these guys, I'm willing to take them at value. You look at the tier of Stevenson, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris. I love that range. Those guys just fall. Nobody really wants anything to do with them, and they end up in like the 6th, 7th round. Like, that's perfect for those guys. If you were asking for a 4th or 5th round pick, maybe that's something that you'd have to think about. But any of those 3 in like the 6th, 7th where they're falling, Kamara falls to a good spot. I would say he's probably my biggest question mark. And really that's just age, and the efficiency has gone down. Derek Carr, the dump offs were great. I think that there's this weird hype with Jamal Williams right now in camp, and he's not getting any targets. So if anything, he would just vulture goal line. But with Kamara at this point in his career, I just think that there's guys around him that I feel like have more juice. So when it comes down to it, I'm usually not drafting a lot of Kamara.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, the rushing efficiency just fell last year. I mean, it was just bad. Outside of him catching those passes, I mean, his fantasy production was very, very poor compared to what we've had to in these past few seasons here. And obviously the age of Steve, and you're right, it's a big factor. Coach Tyler, who is someone in this range you are more down on, let's say?
Yeah, no, Kamara would definitely be number 1 for me. Number 2 would honestly, I'd have to go with Aaron Jones. Okay. We just saw how poor the Vikings running game was last year, and that's partially because of who they were having take the carries last year. But now you're running around with a rookie quarterback who the offensive line wasn't outstanding. It wasn't, a top 5 unit in the league. And Aaron Jones isn't the youngest running back coming in, even though he's got some familiarity with the Vikings because he's only played against them, like 15, 16 times in his career. But he's just not a guy that excites me in terms of age. And we saw somewhat of a dip of production last year. Now, some of that was due to the fact that he was in a shared backfield with A.J. Dillon, but at the same time, we don't know if he's going to walk in and be, 95% of carries week 1, or if they're going to sort of share that backfield between Jones, Ty Chandler, Dwayne McBride, guys that have shown little spurts here and there of being decent running backs, but at the same time, we don't know what Aaron Jones is going to be.
That's fair. Yeah. See, Aaron Jones is, for me, he's my number 1. I feel like what he showed us last year, the efficiency is great when he's on the field and healthy, but consistently deals with injuries over his entire career. And in the seasons where he's healthy, he's not running for 1,400 yards anymore at this point. And while I think more people are down on Ty Chandler, and it's a mix because I feel like I hear good things about Ty Chandler, and then I hear people how can you even consider him a good running back? So for me, it's just like if Aaron Jones, can he handle 20 plus touches a game? I don't know. I don't think he can at this point of his career, to be honest. I feel like they're going to mix in other players.
Yeah.
So I get being down on Aaron Jones as well. So.
I think, with Jones, there's a good point to be made that he could, for me, he could easily get the workload that you really want and be that like plug and play RB2 with a ceiling. That's where I feel like he lives in that, world of, oh, wow, he could actually potentially win me a week. It's not going to be as frequent. It's not going to be as frequent as in the past, but he can actually win you a week. And then maybe his floor is like, okay, RB 37, something like that.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys another question here. Between Travis Etienne, Rachaad White, Kenneth Walker, three guys who are relatively young, who, for the most part, either had a great season last year or a great rookie season here. They do have a reasonable backup, maybe not to that level of, production in terms of taking opportunities away as of yet. But do any of those three guys scare you for the upcoming season? With Etienne having Tank Bigsby, Rachaad White having, Bucky Irving, and Kenneth Walker having Zach Charbonnet. Do these guys scare you off a little bit in general sense at all? Or you're okay with them as your RB2, desperate RB1s?
Yeah, I think with all three of those guys, they're solidified in being the RB1 on their team. They're solidified for well over 250 touches.
Yeah. I would kind of worry about each of these guys in their own right, but not because of their backups. Just because, Walker and his injury history. I am still not 100% sure if Rachaad White is really the guy that we saw last year or if that was a little fluky. And then Travis Etienne just has had those inconsistent weeks where, he looks like the best running back in the league for a couple weeks, and then he goes out and puts up 19 rushing yards and no receptions. So I would have worries about all these guys, but I wouldn't have worries about them solely because of their backups.
That's fair.
I would say that what I just said of them, Etienne, Rachaad White, Kenneth Walker, to me, well over 250 touches for each of them. I can't say that for Achane. I can't say that for Kyren Williams. And I also can't say it for Derrick Henry. I love Derrick Henry, and I think I was going to say, like, hey, this is the guy I actually am going to pick as my favorite here just because the situation, and it's Derrick Henry. Right. That just sounds great. But, they might not give him the workload that he's gotten. I mean, he showed last year that he can still handle it. So I just think that in Baltimore, they're still going to use other backs, and they're still going to have Lamar Jackson. So maybe the ceiling as far as actual opportunities won't be there. And if the efficiency isn't there and the touchdowns just aren't there, then that could be an issue.
Yeah.
See, Derrick Henry was one of that round 3-4 side. He's probably my favorite guy on that side just because of the situation he's walking into the Ravens and sort of how that backfield depleted over the offseason. Had JK and Gus go to the Chargers. Keaton Mitchell, who is going to be the young star, coming back off a torn ACL.
He's on the pump though right now.
Yeah,
right.
And now today he's starting out training camp on the pup. I mean, Justice Hill and Rashaan Ali are back there. Or Rasheen Ali could be something. I know he's a very big sleeper guy for Dynasty. But also, if you look at Gus Edwards' production last year, he had 13 rushing touchdowns. And if you don't think that Derrick Henry can go out and be a better running back than Gus Edwards, at least when we haven't really seen him slow down as much as we thought we would by this point. Obviously, going to a new team, the Ravens have this thing about not keeping their running backs healthy, so maybe we start to see that pop up as he is an incoming running back. But, I mean, 198 attempts, 810 yards, and 13 touchdowns for Gus Edwards last year. I think that Derrick Henry could easily surpass the yardage and the attempt numbers on that. And then I would assume that in that the touchdowns go alongside it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, he should smash. And you're right bringing up the depth chart. There's really not a lot there. And like you said, Steve, we just found out that Keaton Mitchell starting on the pup. He was really the only viable competition. So once he's back, maybe they'll work him in more. But it's like they're going to be forced to actually give him the ball a lot more in the beginning of the season. So we'll see how he holds up. But yeah, last year, 280 carries and 28 catches, so over 300 touches last year. So we'll see. I think that he ends up being my favorite a lot of times. He does stand out to me in that third round of these backs just because you can just see that ceiling. But when it comes to the guaranteed volume, the other guys seem like they're going to be used more as pass catchers. Maybe not Walker as much, but really the depth chart isn't there for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I really prefer, if I'm looking at drafting a running back and if I'm missing out early on, I want to get a combination of the guys in the 3 to 4 range than the combinations of the 5 to 6. Personally, that's kind of just how I feel about them. Like, I'd love to get Henry if I can, and then maybe in this 4th round get James Cook. Personally, like, I like James Cook this coming season here with the lack of weapons that Buffalo has to offer this coming season here. I feel like James Cook might get more involved in the passing game. And while Josh Allen loves to score his rushing touchdowns, I think there's opportunity for James Cook to see an increase of just from 2 rushing touchdowns to get to 6 or 7 this coming season here because of the lack of passing volume that they have in this offense here. So I don't think they're going to just run Josh Allen to the ground. I think they will use James Cook. He's going into his 3rd season, primed to have a big season this year. So, and again, they didn't take anyone that I'm like Ray Davis and Frank Gore Jr. Like, I'm not like, those guys don't impress me enough to say they're going to take carries away from James Cook, and he's going to be another guy that's going to see 230 carries this coming season at least. So, all right, boys, let's get over to the next tier here. We are going over to one too many. The late middle rounds. That's the names I come up with here. Let's talk about the round 6. We have Dave Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, Zamir White, the James Conner, Zach Moss. Round 7, Jalen Warren, Jonathan Brooks, Tony Pollard, Raheem Mostert, Javonte Williams, all encumbrance starters. A couple, you get a repeat with Montgomery and Warren at the top there as the backups coming in, heavy upside backups here. So let's start with the positives this time here, guys. Who do you like in this range here? Someone that you're wanting to take if you had the opportunity to.
I'll go with David Montgomery, and I just had this come up in the Scott Fish Bowl in the 7th round. I wanted one of these running backs in this tier, and it was Ramondre Stevenson or David Montgomery for me. And it really just came down to my old co-host on the Hot Take texted me. He was like, man, the scene in New England's going to be rough this year, meaning just the offense you really don't want pieces of. And while I think that I could probably say Ramondre is going to get more touches, I chose the offense. I chose David Montgomery with the Lions offense. It worked really nicely last year. If you had pieces of this offense anywhere, they were going to produce for you. So just to get a piece of this offense in this round, with the efficiency he had last year, I don't know if that really goes away. I still think that there's no reason if he's healthy, he doesn't get 10 plus touchdowns again as often as this team is in the red zone. Gibbs, I think this year it's just the baked in dip of Montgomery is just all baked into the rise of Gibbs and the potential that we're going to see Gibbs really take over. He's going to be great, but Montgomery isn't going away. He's still a great running back in the league. They loved what they got out of him last year. He had his most efficient season of his career. They're going to keep feeding him. So I think as long as health is there, there's this dip on Montgomery that really shouldn't be there.
Yeah, no, I get that too. I did an article recently on, like double-digit touchdown guys this past season here, and both Montgomery and Gibbs did it. And to be honest, I just feel that the efficiency of him in the red zone makes so much more sense about him getting another 10 touchdown season. Like, I know everyone joked, well, Jamal Williams did the 1 year and then completely fell apart. Like, Dave Montgomery is in the same offense. He's not going to go away. They still have another year or two on him. They're going to use this guy. They're not going to overwork Jahmyr Gibbs, even though he's a round 1 player or round 2 player. Like, they're going to use the investment they brought in Dave Montgomery and use him as that, that thunder to the lightning that Jahmyr Gibbs offers. So in that round 6, like, he might not have, big weeks every week, but he's going to be a little bit more of a consistent factor for you in fantasy.
And for context, in the Scott Fish Bowl, you have to start a lot of flexes. I forget how many. It's like
I think it's 4 or 5, something like that.
No, it's a bajillion. And so just to get that touchdown on a given week, that's just like, okay, that elevates you so much. Where he's probably not going to get as many touches as the Ramondre Stevens of the world. I can see, maybe James Conner in a healthy season. He's not going to get more touches than James Conner, but you just are kind of betting on that offense in that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Coach Tyler, who is someone in this range you're really high on?
One guy that really intrigues me is DeAndre Swift. Walking into, obviously, David Montgomery, give me all the David Montgomery, but I'm trying to switch it up. Y'all have heard me talk about Jalen Warren. DeAndre Swift is a guy that really intrigues me. He's one of my favorite players to watch when he's healthy, especially when he was in Detroit. He was just like a do-it-all back. He could run. They'd throw these little dump-offs to him, and he'd make, 2 guys miss with the meanest juke you'd ever seen. And then, he'd twist his ankle and go off the field and miss 3 games. But, when you look at DeAndre Swift, he was with the Eagles last season. And he didn't have a bad season by any means. 1,049 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. We kind of talked about the tush push. 39 receptions for 214 and a touchdown. So not a terrible season. If you're looking at it, he finished number 20 overall in PPR, number 20 RB in PPR, RB 23 and half PPR. So you're getting an RB2 with that season. And now he's walking into a team where everyone and their mother is saying, oh my gosh, this team is going to pass the ball so much. They have the young stud Caleb Williams. They have all these receiving weapons. It's going to be amazing. And the first thing that the Bears did in the offseason before they even went out into the draft was like literally 45 seconds into free agency opening was signed DeAndre Swift to a 3-year, $24 million deal.
Got paid.
Exactly. He had a 1,000-yard season. He had a good season. And like we talked about with the tush push, if he has any other quarterback that's not Jalen Hurts, that 5 touchdowns probably goes up to at least 8, maybe 10. Because there's multiple times he got tackled on the 1, and it was a big joking matter for Jason Kelce on his podcast of he would just tap DeAndre Swift on the back and be like, sorry, man, it's coming. So, he's coming off a good season. We saw him finally be fairly healthy, 16 games played. But he's walking into a backfield that there's a lot of guys, but no one has established themselves as the guy. Everyone thought it would be Khalil Herbert or Roschon Johnson last year. Khalil Herbert didn't have a terrible season, but obviously he didn't establish himself as the guy if the Bears are immediately going to go get a new running back when they have the opportunity. And Roschon Johnson didn't see the field as much as a lot of people wanted, definitely not as much as I wanted. But Swift is walking into a situation where every team is going to think pass. And if you're smart with a rookie quarterback, and let's say go out just on a tear like CJ Stroud did, you run the ball because you want to be sure that you aren't putting too much pressure on your quarterback to go out and win, especially when they're of the allure that Caleb Williams is. And so DeAndre Swift is a guy that really interests me. If he goes out and has the exact same season he does last year and he's an RB2 and I'm getting him at the beginning or middle of round 6, I'm perfectly happy with that. That means I'm out here loading up on receiver. Maybe I take a quarterback early. I get my early running back, and then I go in with Swift as my RB2 at the earliest. If you were really going 0 RB, then maybe he's your RB1, and we got to talk about your strategy.
That's solid. I mean, and you're talking about you can easily get him as your RB3 or 4. But you even at your RB2, you stacked up at all the other positions. You have DeAndre Swift. That's not terrible. I think there is like that nebulous situation with the other 2 guys. How are they going to be used? But to your point, they are building around their rookie quarterback. They're not so much trying to have projects at the running back position. That's more for a team that's losing, and it's more for not when you just drafted the number 1 overall pick. So that's why you see them investing to protect that quarterback. So I wouldn't be surprised if Swift smashes his 49 targets from last year. That should be simple. Like I don't think, I think Roschon got a lot of third down work last year. I think he did well as a pass blocker, so that'll be interesting how they split that. But as far as a pass catcher is concerned, Swift has that role.
So for me, like I do like Swift a lot there. I am concerned that like Caleb Williams, the way he plays football, he's not going to want to just dump the ball off as often. He's going to want to take those chances downfield, scramble out to the
Yeah.
pocket and look for the downfield for the big play.
Right.
And I feel like that could hurt Swift in that sense, but he should get the rushing work. I mean, Roshan Johnson didn't show enough last year. I'm assuming. I don't know. I'd be surprised if Khalil Herbert's still on the team come week 1, and if he doesn't get traded or something. I mean, I guess at this point he probably would have if he was going to. But he's a really good 2-down running back there. So I mean, I wouldn't want to take away. I could see him taking away some work from DeAndre Swift a little bit. But no, I mean, I get your point though, Tyler. I mean, there's a lot of upside there for the rookie quarterback there to have them run the ball more often here to kind of get things going than rather than just force him force Caleb Williams into bad situations. So for me, guys, I'm gonna go right down the list with you guys. It's to me, Zamir White still. I really love Zamir White in round 6. I just feel like there's so much upside in his potential this season. They continue just not to bring in anybody. I think I've mentioned it more than enough times, but like the upside of getting 240 carries this coming season here with another 30 to 40 targets / receptions this coming season here, it just screams Zamir White is a big workhorse back in this Las Vegas backfield here. With Alexander Madison, who just showed that he can't do much with limited touches, and there's really no one else there to really just take enough work away from Zamir White to have a good season. So is there someone in this range, guys? Tyler, you can go first. Is that you kind of don't like, you're kind of more down on in the 6 and 7 range?
I'd have to be between Mostert and Javonte. Mostert, just kind of like things that we hit on when we were talking about A-Chain, age, injury history. I think back to 2 seasons ago when Jamal Williams had his insane, score every touchdown from the 1-yard line as a running back season. And that's a lot of what Raheem Mostert was last year. And we look at what Jamal Williams did last year, and I probably could have gotten more yards and touchdowns than he did. So just for those reasons, I'd be scared off of Mostert. Javonte, he just hasn't blossomed into who we thought he would be as a running back. I was a guy that was very high on him coming out in the draft, and he just hasn't lived up to the expectation between injuries and inefficiency. And then the Broncos just don't look overly set up for success as an offense. And so, when we go back to Steve talking about drafting between David Montgomery and Ramondre, sometimes when you look at the offense and you see how successful either is supposed to be, I don't want to really have a part of the Broncos offense unless it's just for extremely free.
That's fair. I like it. I like those two down there for sure. I mean, they're at the end for a reason. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Coach Steven, how about you? Is there someone you're kind of not avoiding, but down on in this range?
I think it has to be Javonte. Right now, he's not the sexiest name. I find myself trying to draft more of him in those best ball drafts just because everybody is out on him. So maybe I'm trying to get just a little bit of shares. Maybe if he can take that next step and he really just gets a big workload. But see, that's where it's like there's all these names circulating around that look like they're going to get some sort of work. McLaughlin and the rookie Aldrich Estime getting a lot of praise right now. That could be, just fluff. There's a lot of fluff at this time, so we could be looking back at this and be like, "Oh, remember when we were talking about those guys?" No, of course it was Devontae's job. And if that's the case, then he probably has some value because he's going behind all of these guys. Like everyone is out on Javonte.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, Javonte, it's hard to get behind him. I mean, he is another year removed from a torn MCL and ACL. But everything that their Broncos are saying and doing are pointing towards them getting rid of Williams after the season and using some of these other backs in this offense. Yeah, I mean, those guys make a lot of sense there. Jaylen Warren in round 7 for me. To me, I feel like the value is a little high personally. Like, I know this team's going to turn a little bit into more of a run team. I know Warren is more the electric, home run kind of threat running back there compared to Najee Harris, who's, more of the bruiser kind of back here. But I really do believe, and I mean, this could be me like liking Najee Harris more this coming season here because of Arthur Smith and what this art office is going to do, that taking Jalen Warren this early, I just don't see them both being super successful. I feel like it's going to be one or the other this season. And like, I don't know, taking Warren around 7, like I'd still rather take, Jonathan Brooks, Tony Pollard, maybe even Raheem Mostert this season still. Like I'd still rather take those guys because they are the RB1s of their teams. And I do trust them a little bit more than Jalen Warren. Jalen Warren, like he has moments, absolutely. Big upside play at sometimes, certain weeks, but I feel like give him the starting role, and he just he did that like once or twice, I think, in his career, and it just didn't work well. And then I feel like he's not always as efficient as you want him to be, or he portrays to be, with limited touches. So
I think we saw Arthur Smith wanting to get the ball to Tyler Algier a lot because he's huge. He's like the prototypical running back, where Bijan just isn't that guy. He's the more explosive, electric guy with the ball in his hands, and that's what Najee is. He's like just that big plotter, but he's like really good at that. Like he's one of the best at that. That's what he came into the league as. That's what he is. And Arthur Smith's going to love that. I think that the gap between Najee and Warren this year is bigger than what the ADP suggests right now, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they're a round or two apart right now or so. That's really what it is. So I think I messed up. This is round 7. I think this is round 8, but still Jalen Warren in round 8 still for me is a little high personally. All right, let's get over to the next tier here. Early, late rounds, because I cannot think of a better. Yeah, I know. I cannot think of better names for these things, but
no, I love them. I love them so much.
It can be early and late at the same time.
Yeah, early and late at the same time here. Round 9, we have that Austin Eckler, Devin Singletary, Brian Robinson, Tajay Spears. Round 10, we have Trey Benson, Blake Corum, Jerome Ford, Chase Brown, and the mechanic Nick Chubb, who just lifted like 450 on the squats today. So
don't mean none.
He's back. Nick Chubb is back. Nick Chubb is back at football. Sorry, guys. So in this round here, who do you guys like here? These guys are going to be probably someone's RB3s on their team unless they go 0 RB. Or do you guys feel maybe these are some pretty good guys that go 0 RB for? I don't know how late you guys go 0 RB, but
so you're saying this would be an RB? This is your first running back you draft?
Yeah, like can you be comfortable with some of this here?
Wow. Tyler, who are you going for your first running back off the board of these names?
First running back of these names, I'm gonna have to go Brian Robinson.
Yes,
love it.
Very simple. When we talked about values that we liked, Brian Robinson was that guy. Mini men. Got to talk about it. We love it.
I think when I draft Brian Robinson on my team this year, which I'm going to do in like all my teams, I'm going to Photoshop the picture of Trump with Brian Robinson's face on it. Like after he just had, got shot, came down with the blood, that's Brian Robinson on Trump.
I've seen so many videos with them, like with Trump with mini men now. So just see, it works. You get shot. You get mini men played over anything involving you. But yeah, Brian Robinson, if I'm taking my first RB right here, like we've talked about, supposed starter for the Commanders, ultra efficient. They got rid of Antonio Gibson finally, if I'm remembering that right. Am I remembering that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought he was
yes.
I thought he was gone, and then I had to question it. Yeah, Eckler, I'm not worried about. Come on, I'm past my prime, and so is he, but I could still beat him in a race. So, but yeah, Brian Robinson. If I am taking a running back here, he's just got really the best situation in terms of guys that he has to beat out, and then Singletary is the only one that I would kind of say has a better situation in terms of people behind him trying to get at him, but at the same time, he plays for the Giants, and we saw what happened to Saquon and his efficiency literally anytime he touched the ball behind that offensive line. And so Devin Singletary is not Saquon Barkley, and I don't think that it's going to matter. So Brian Robinson, if I'm taking a running back from this group, little guy that I would take a chance on, Trey Benson. He's a guy that I went and got a lot of my rookie drafts. I think that the Cardinals might run James Conner into the ground because it's the last year of his contract. But at the same time, you want to make sure Benson is up to NFL play speed, and especially with some people having concerns about his vision and reading running lanes, you want to get him as many reps as possible in game to work on that and continue to grow in that area. So even if they start running James Conner on the ground, I think Trey Benson is going to be in the game enough to suffice. And then if anything happens to James Conner, Trey Benson is going to take over the lion's share of that workload because there's really not any other running back on that roster.
All right. I like your choices there. Coach Steven, how do you feel?
If it's RB1 off the board, I think Brian Robinson gives you the best chance of 200 plus carries. I love I buy into the touches going up and then the touchdowns going up for Robinson. And then, he showed that he can be an efficient pass catcher as well. Eckler is going to get a lot of that, of course. And I think Eckler, as long as he's healthy, is going to, be involved, so it's going to be like a 50-50 split. So you're not necessarily getting a workhorse running back with Brian Robinson, but I still think he exceeds that 200 carry mark because I think he is going to be the main guy between the tackles. But if I'm going to go for upside, a lot of these guys can do different things for your team. Like Trey Benson, he's probably like a wait and see. Jerome Ford, the first few weeks of your season, you're going to get a lot from Jerome Ford. So if you just want to wait and get Ford as like your RB2, if you're really doing the wait on the running back, you can plug and play Ford for the first few weeks of the season. And then Blake Corum is another wait and see guy. But if we wait and see, and then he's this year's Puka Nacua, on the same team, I mean, Sean McVay has complete control of this, guys. I'm telling you, he's a troll. He wants to do this to us in fantasy. And Blake Corum all of a sudden is the guy. I see a world where, so if you're trying to win leagues like in Scott Fishbowl, I drafted Blake Corum over some of these guys because I'm like, look, if all things go well for Corum, it's game breaker.
Yeah, and then and with Corum, I mean, I feel like you really need to see if Williams is practicing in training camp, and if you find out that he's not still or he's being limited or whatever, it gives more fuel that you should consider Corum as a real big option this coming season. So I like Benson too. Again, I mean, seeing Nick Chubb squat, 450 today, I'm kind of all right, screw it, round 10, let me get Nick Chubb. What's the worst that's gonna happen? It's round 10 at this point, I go and Chase, me to draft, Chase Brown. I think I'd rather draft Nick Chubb at this point. I think the upside for Nick Chubb to still do decent is there, but again, there's a lot of risk, obviously, but this man had his knee torn up inside out and is squatting like that already. I mean, the man's a machine. So,
but has he made a jump cut yet?
Whatever. The fact that he's squatting that much is ridiculous.
Well, it's how many games is he going to play? If he was going to play 8 games, would you draft him in round 10? 8?
No, probably not. No.
Okay.
If he's on the pump list, though, I still might. I don't know if I would consider it. I might wait till the double digits. So even though it is double digits, but that might be tough. If he's on the steal right now, I'd be good.
He could be a steal right now. Absolutely.
I'll take it. But yeah, Robinson, Singletary, those are good RB1s if you're really doing that zero RB strategy. I feel like they can give you enough. They might not give you enough, but they'll give you something. How do you guys feel about Tajay Spears? I feel like we really haven't talked about Spears as much on this podcast. Do you guys like Spears? Do you prefer not to go after Spears if you can?
Yeah, I like Spears. I think I'd rather have him over Pollard, just because you're getting him 2 or 3 rounds later. So I would take Spears. He's explosive. I mean, he is when he gets the ball in his hands, he is a game breaker. We already know that. We don't have to find that out. So he's still young. He's still going to get a lot of work in the pass game. So this Titans offense as a whole, I think, is being undervalued. Pretty much all of their players, I think, will exceed their ADP, except for maybe DeAndre Hopkins, depending on how he goes.
That's fair.
Yeah, I like Tajay Spears. The competition with Tony Pollard, I was a guy that very much believed that Tony Pollard was his best when he was a 1B. Right. But I don't think Tajay Spears is going to be the 1A Zeke Elliott that Tony Pollard had. I think they're going to play off of each other well, but I also don't know how efficient this offense is going to be. I'm not a big Will Levis believer, and that's not me talking as a Texans fan, Titans hater. But that's just me talking as someone who sees him put mayo in his coffee. Same thing.
That's fair.
But I don't know how efficient this offense is going to be. And even if they do return to the ground and pound, which, new coaching staff, new OC, we don't know if it's going to be Derrick Henry and they're just trying to run it with 2 guys instead of 1. Even if it's ground and pound like it was in the past, I don't know that either of them sees enough work to really dominate. I guess coming out in round 9, I'd be very okay taking Spears here, but I'd also want to, as we get closer to camp, see more of Spears' name than I do Pollard's.
Spears is a guy who, right now that I'm thinking about it, if I'm ever doing DFS and I'm making 10 lineups, I want to make sure that I have at least one with Spears in there. The way this offense is going to work, I think they're going to pass a lot with the 3 receivers. I think that's going to be great for Spears. They're going to push everyone out. Spears is going to get some of those dump offs or design plays. And if he gets space, then, he's gone. So that's where I love him, is just if you put him in your flex, depending on how much work, we'll see after the first few weeks how they're using the backs. I mean, if they're just giving Tony Pollard everything, that could happen. I mean, they brought
That's
him
what
in.
I'm concerned about with Spears.
Right,
They're going to give Tony Pollard a lot more work than people expect, because they did, just like DeAndre Swift, they brought him in a signing really early in free agency. They brought in Tony Pollard within 6 hours. They got him in that building and they signed him. And this is a new regime. If this was still under Mike Vrabel, and all right, yeah, they signed him, whatever, but they needed an RB to mix in. But they drafted Spears. They didn't draft Spears. So
right.
I have my concerns in that sense that it could work good. It could be that hot hand approach they keep mentioning. It could favor Spears, but I have a strong feeling it's going to favor Tony Pollard, because he can do the exact same things. I don't know why they brought in running backs like this. That's the thing that still mind boggles me with this Titans backfield. All right, over to the 5th slide here. Mid-late round RBs. This is round 11, 12, and 13. You have the Zeke Elliott's, Gus Edwards, Zach Charbonnet, Kendre Miller, Ty Chandler, Marshawn Lloyd, Rico Dowlings, Keami Vidal, Chuba Hubbard, Jalen Wright, Antonio Gibson, and Jalen McLaughlin. So, guys, is there sleeper value here? I don't want to make it easy for you guys. So, obviously, Gus Edwards and Zeke Elliott are going to be day 1 starters on their teams here. So, anyone outside of those guys, someone that you really like to target in this year's draft here?
My guy would be Kendre Miller if I'm targeting someone not Zeke or Gus.
Those are good value, obviously.
Yeah, great value. Be very happy having him midway down my bench. But Kendre Miller, he was a guy that people were sort of on 2 sides of the camp with last year. You either loved him or you were like, this guy's never going to see the field. And he really didn't until week 18, when he came in on 30% or 36% of snaps and took 13 carries for 73 yards and a touchdown, and then had a little 6-yard dump off reception. But good enough for RB13 on the week. And once people saw him do that against an NFL defense, his name started to fly around a little bit more. And that also works in part with the fact that Jamal Williams did absolutely nothing last year. And then we've talked about our concerns with Alvin Kamara. He's not, the best running back running the ball, and he's getting up there in age. So, he's a guy that intrigues me, especially if I'm taking shots this late, which if I'm not getting Zeke or Gus, who are going to be the day 1 guys, I'm really taking shots at who's a number 2, who's even a possible number 3 on the depth chart going into camp, that is going to exceed the value that I draft him at. That's going to possibly work their way into that first carry in the game role. And so Kendre Miller's the guy that I could see that happening for. Obviously, if anything happened to Kenneth Walker pre-season, Zach Charbonnet's name is going to jump up a couple of these slides. But, hopefully nothing happens to Kenneth Walker. But if it does, Charbonnet, obviously the easy pick from here. But Kendre Miller's the one that really piques my interest. He's a guy that I've really liked and I've really been looking at a lot more in drafts.
So yeah, I see Kendre Miller as a guy that I'm going to pick up in week 4. Something's gonna happen. I feel like first few weeks it's gonna be like he's gonna get like 2 or 3 carries here and there, or touches, whatever, and then people are gonna drop him, and then boom, you snag him up in the later in the first month of the season, and then something's gonna happen. I feel like it's just too early of a value for Kendry Miller. Like, I think he belongs in the next tier. Like Tyler Algier, I feel like Tyler Algier deserves to be here better than Kendry Miller right now. I know the upside is there, and I especially the passive value, but this is Alvin Kamara's team. I don't know. Steve, how do you feel about this range here? Any good sleepers you like?
Yeah, I like the Kendry Miller take. It's tough because he hasn't done it for a sustained time. Or like your point, Steve, like we have seen Algier do it. So why is he not valued higher? So I see that point. So it's definitely a swing for Miller, and you're really calling your shot. So if you draft him with like the last, your last round, you kind of just wait and see approach. That you can do that, or you can just wait and hope you get him off waivers. That's also one way to do it. I just want to bring up Chuba as a guy who we need to just monitor what's going on with Jonathan Brooks. If you're talking about, week 1, he just might be a nice flyer to take. And then all of a sudden, week 1, week 2, he's actually the majority guy getting the majority of the touches for the Panthers. I think eventually Brooks will get worked in. So it's not really like your high ceiling, go for the fences, which I do believe either Marshawn Lloyd or Vidal could be that home run swing. It's just 2 good offenses. You figure you want the running back in that situation. We just have to see what's going on with Josh Jacobs. Like, how much does he have left in the tank? If he has everything, and then they'll give him everything. Marshawn Lloyd won't even get on the field. You can drop him after week 1. But then again, he's somebody who they'll probably ramp up throughout the season. And then Kamani Vidal, the Chargers, is just such a nebulous situation. I don't know how much more J.K. Dobbins has in the tank. It'd be very interesting to see. And then Gus Edwards already talked about he's a little bit banged up right now. He is the day one starter. But look, Vidal is the guy who can actually be worked in, catch some passes, and be kind of like that change of pace back. So if he has any juice and he can get onto the field, I mean, for him and Lloyd, I think just you have to monitor how, if they can get onto the field, they can start earning touches, they're going to exceed their value for sure.
Yeah, no, those definitely some good ones. Vidal has always been someone I've been high on this offseason so far. Someone I kind of do like, I've been coming more around the more research I do him, but Rico Dowling, we talk about Zeke Elliott returning back to Dallas now at this point here, and that's all great and homecoming and whatnot, but like, it's also like a 30-year-old running back just about who's got like so much trend on his tires from almost 8 years in this league here. Like, the breakdown is going to come and the inefficiency is going to come there at some point. I mean, we saw it when he left Dallas that 1 year when he was with Tony Pollard, and Pollard was kind of just taking over a bit here. And then he comes back here because Jerry Jones doesn't want to spend money on running backs or anyone. So like, bring back Zeke Elliott. Why not? He's going to come back on a cheap deal. Dowling, I think, last year he posted 300 yards last year, 89 carries, like ran well enough, had decent, targets in the offense here. And there's really no one else in this Dallas offense to really challenge for the backup job. And I think Rico can actually make a role for himself in this offense. Like, he'd be someone I'm interested in, because if something happened to Zeke, I mean, I just don't really see any other running backs really stepping up. I mean, Royce Freeman, who's the little guy that's there in Dallas? I can't think of his name.
Deuce Vaughn. Like, I just feel like Rico would have a great shot of seeing an actual backup job that has value and taking over if, God forbid, something happened to Zeke Elliott pretty easily.
That's another one. Just last pick your draft, see what happens week 1. Are they using him? Is he getting on the field? Because you're right. Zeke, if you're betting on that he's going to break down, I just think that Rico's he's like a guy that you could add in on a dynasty trade, be like, hey, just throw in Rico Dowdle. That's instead of a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, then you kind of get maybe an extra RB that can be utilized this year. Because you're right. How much are they really going to give Zeke? I don't know if it's going to be 60, 70%. I don't think it's going to be.
They shouldn't.
I don't know if he can handle it. And you got to get his snaps at center, so he can't kick carries.
Even last year when you saw Zeke, I mean, yeah, he did good in fantasy, but the rushing efficiency was down. If he's not catching passes, like,
right.
He wasn't good.
A lot of targets last year. They wanted to use him more than Ramondre in the passing game, so that was interesting.
It was very interesting because they probably had to find a way to use him, and Stevenson was just a very efficient runner the year before, probably. But yeah, I mean, definitely an interesting tier. And then we're on our last tier here, the late round RBs, even though this whole thing has been later round RBs. But we have round 15, 16, 14. I guess if you're playing a 16-man team here, you have J.K. Dobbins, Ray Davis, Tyler Algier, Bucky Irvin, Roshan Johnson, Braylon Allen, Tyrone Tracy, Elijah Mitchell, Khalil Herbert, Damian Pierce, Deontay Foreman, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So any deep sleepers for RBs at the end of your draft, very end of your draft here?
I'm going to go.
It's an easy one, probably.
I'm going to go Tyrone Tracy as far as deep sleeper. And for anybody that's listening, if you're still in your Scott Fishbowl drafts, he might be returning kicks this year. That's like 10 points on a return touchdown. So
love that.
I'll just throw his name out there.
Tyler?
Yeah, Tracy, and then, talked about Tyler Algier last slide. Pretty cut and dry. Maybe if you want to take the shot on J.K. Dobbins, I'm someone that will possibly do that once or twice this season. We'll see.
I want to believe. I want
to be the one to have trusted in it for so long and finally hit.
So good.
Right.
Even for 1 week and then trade him off.
He was a first-round pick once upon a time. I mean, he was like dynasty gold, but it just is, can his body do it at this point?
Yeah. Braylon Allen is someone else I would consider as my last pick just to see what his touch share is week 1 in this offense here and see how involved he is or not is in this offense. I mean, Hall's first year, they did use him and Michael Carter a lot. This past year was a lot of just Hall, but Allen is kind of like a really big, bulky back that might be actually able to be used in certain situations here. So I'd be interested to see if Allen has any value, and God forbid, if something happens to obviously Hall, Allen probably would jump pretty high as an RB2 in fantasy football if that were to happen. So there's some decent guys here. The guys you said are pretty good. Again, a lot of these guys, you're gonna wait for an injury to happen, but some guys you might want to just draft the first week or two and see what their opportunity is in the offense, because you just never know.
Can we call Braylon Allen Baby Tyler Algier?
Baby Tyler Algier.
That'd be his nickname.
I like it.
I don't think there's anyone built like Braylon Allen. Maybe he's Baby Nick Chubb.
I like it. I mean, Braylon Allen should be able to earn his way onto the field, and like it's weird. It's weird to like have. Was he drafted in the 4th round or 5th round?
4th round.
It's weird to like have a 4th round pick. Like, you don't want to worry about that for someone who you're drafting in the 1st round, like Breece Hall. But I mean, if this offense can be efficient at all and end up in the red zone, I don't see why you wouldn't eventually use Braylon Allen at the goal line.
Yeah, I mean, get him in there. Like, let Hall handle the targets, and then Allen can get some touchdowns here and there. He'll have a game or two where he has a touchdown and 40 yards, 50 yards at some point.
Yeah, I think he's going to vulture some touchdowns this year for sure.
Absolutely. All right, boys. That is the end of our running back preview segments. Hopefully, all those who tuned in tonight, not on Twitter, obviously, for obvious reasons. For some reason, I have to look into that. Enjoyed tonight's episode. Obviously, we enjoy doing this, trying to help you guys out, get ready for the season. If you're in your drafts already, which I'm in a lot of charity drafts right now, it's great to get a feel of these running backs and see where they are and where you could get better values and whatnot. So, Coach Steven, anything you want to say before we get going tonight?
That's it, man. Yeah, just hit me up on X. If you have any questions, always happy to help in the fantasy streets.
So, and Coach Tyler.
Yeah, hit us up on X. We've got all of our usernames right here on the screen. If you're listening on your podcast, go check it out on YouTube so you can see all the usernames. Also, go check out Dynasty Nerds. We didn't do our ad reads. Me and Coach Steve right over there do a whole bunch of stuff for them. So as we're getting ready for redraft, we'll have a lot more content coming out. But yeah, check us out.
Yes, there's a lot of content coming out for a redraft over there right now. I am writing 50% of it. So not to toot my own horn, but yeah, we appreciate you guys for all listening tonight, whether you're listening live on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you can. We love to get the subscriptions. And if you're listening on us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, write us a review or, subscribe to our thing. I think you can subscribe or at least add us to your like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever they do over there. They do something, but we'd appreciate it, obviously. And we'll be back next Monday. We're going to be talking tight ends. So if you're looking to hear more about how the tight end position landscape is for 2024, we're going to give you guys the full breakdown. So we thank you guys all for listening. Tune in until next time, everyone, and have a good one.
that. Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple of Clark Kent